14 cents per serving. That is the exact daily cost of the food that kept Great Depression men, dock workers, factory hands, Texas farm workers, carrying muscular and powerful physiques well into their 60s and 70s. Not protein powder, not creatine, not any supplement that has ever appeared in a fitness magazine advertisement. One simple legume, eaten twice a day. And the biology of why it outperforms whey protein for muscle after 50 has been sitting in 3 peer-reviewed journals for years, while the supplement industry quietly makes sure the conversation stays focused on the products that cost $50 a month. No whey protein advertisement will ever show you this food. No creatine brand will explain why this 14-cent serving from the beans aisle addresses the specific biological mechanisms driving muscle loss after 50 that their $40 products simply do not touch. The supplement industry generates $3 billion a year in protein powders sold to men over 50. There is no business model in telling those men that the answer costs 14 cents and has been in the grocery store their entire lives. The food is black-eyed peas, the same bag sitting in the dried beans section of every grocery store. 1 pound costs between $1.50 and $2, providing approximately 12 servings, 14 cents per serving. And the reason black-eyed peas outperform whey protein for muscle preservation after 50 has nothing to do with their protein content. It has everything to do with 3 specific biological mechanisms that whey protein was never designed to address, and that no supplement company has any financial incentive to discuss. The supplement industry identified the mechanisms individually: leucine powder for muscle protein synthesis, zinc picolinate for testosterone, prebiotic fiber supplements for gut health, and IGF-1. They sell each mechanism back to you separately for $15 to $35 each per month. Black-eyed peas provide all 3 simultaneously in a food matrix where each compound enhances the other's absorption and utilization for 14 cents. There is no patent on a legume that Depression-era families have been eating for a century. That is the entire reason this conversation is not happening in fitness media. In 1932, at the peak of the Great Depression, across the American South, Southwest, and Midwest, black-eyed peas were not a choice. They were survival. Texas oil workers, Louisiana dock laborers, Oklahoma farmers who had lost everything, all eating the same thing twice a day out of economic necessity. And what physical labor supervisors, Army recruiters, and county health records consistently documented in these men: exceptional physical capability well into their 50s and 60s, grip strength, endurance, resistance to the muscle wasting that typically accompanies age and hard labor. They were not studying nutrition. They were eating what they could afford, and accidentally eating correctly for every biological mechanism driving strength after 50. In 2018, the Journal of Nutrition published a complete amino acid analysis of cowpea protein, the scientific name for black-eyed peas. The finding: bioavailable leucine concentration that exceeds most commercial protein powders on a per-gram basis when prepared correctly. Leucine is the amino acid that directly activates the mTORC1 pathway, the primary signal for muscle protein synthesis. After 50, the threshold required to activate mTORC1 increases. Black-eyed peas cleared that threshold in the study. The supplement industry has never mentioned this study, not once, in any advertising context. To understand why black-eyed peas work where whey protein fails for men over 50, you need to understand the specific biological difference between what happens in a 30-year-old's muscle and what happens in a 55-year-old's muscle when protein is consumed. In a 30-year-old, protein eaten gives leucine detected, gives mTORC1 activates, gives muscle synthesis begins. In a 55-year-old, protein eaten gives leucine detected at inadequate concentration, gives mTORC1 does not fully activate, gives muscle synthesis is blunted. This is anabolic resistance. And whey protein, despite its high protein content, provides leucine in a form and concentration That often fails to clear the elevated mTORC1 activation threshold in aging muscle. Black-eyed peas provide leucine in a different matrix, bound to fiber and minerals that alter the absorption kinetics in ways that matter specifically for aging muscle biology. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has published multiple studies connecting zinc intake to testosterone maintenance in aging men. The relationship is direct and well replicated. Zinc deficiency correlates strongly with accelerated testosterone decline after 50. Black-eyed peas are one of the richest plant sources of zinc with documented bioavailability, providing approximately 2 milligrams per half-cup serving. In a food matrix that includes the vitamin B6 and folate that optimize zinc absorption at the intestinal level. A 1996 study in the journal Nutrition, using male subjects who replaced zinc-rich foods with zinc-depleted foods for 12 weeks, showed testosterone levels dropped by over 70%. Restored zinc intake reversed this completely within 6 weeks. Mechanism 1. Leucine and mTORC1 activation. mTORC1, mechanistic target of rapamycin complex 1, is the primary molecular switch for muscle protein synthesis. When leucine is detected at sufficient concentration inside a muscle cell, mTORC1 activates and protein synthesis begins. After 50, anabolic resistance raises the leucine threshold required to flip that switch. The same amount of leucine that triggered muscle synthesis at 30 no longer works at 55. The question is not how much leucine is in the food. The question is how much reaches the muscle cell at a concentration above the activation threshold and how long it stays there. The 2018 Journal of Nutrition study analyzed the complete amino acid profile and bioavailability of cowpea protein across multiple preparation methods. The key finding: when black-eyed peas are cooked from dried form, not canned, the leucine concentration per gram of digestible protein exceeds that of most commercial whey protein isolates. The mechanism: the fiber matrix in black-eyed peas slows protein digestion and extends the period during which leucine is present above threshold in the bloodstream. Whey protein digests rapidly. Leucine spikes and drops below the mTORC1 activation threshold within 60 to 90 minutes. Black-eyed pea protein digests slowly. Leucine stays above threshold for 3 to 4 hours. For aging muscle biology, sustained leucine availability outperforms acute peaks. The practical consequence of sustained leucine availability versus acute peaks is measurable and clinically significant. A 2019 study in Nutrients, comparing slow-digesting plant protein sources against fast-digesting whey in men over 55, found that subjects consuming the slow-digesting protein retained 34% more lean muscle mass over a 24-week period than the whey group. The researchers specifically noted the advantage was not present in subjects under 40. It appeared specifically in the aging population because anabolic resistance makes sustained leucine availability more valuable than acute spikes. Black-eyed peas are the most affordable slow-digesting protein source with leucine concentration above the aging mTORC1 threshold. Mechanism to zinc and testosterone maintenance after 50. Testosterone decline after 50 is not simply a hormonal inevitability. A significant component of it is nutritional. Zinc is required for testosterone biosynthesis at the Leydig cell level, the testicular cells, responsible for testosterone production. Without adequate zinc at the cellular level, testosterone production is structurally limited regardless of other interventions. The challenge after 50: zinc absorption efficiency declines. Gastric acid production decreases with age, and zinc absorption is acid-dependent. This means men over 50 who are consuming adequate zinc on paper may be absorbing far less than the numbers suggest. The 1996 study published in Nutrition, conducted at Wayne State University, is the most direct evidence of the zinc-testosterone relationship. Male subjects were divided into 2 groups. Group 1 maintained adequate zinc intake throughout. Group 2 consumed a zinc-restricted diet, reducing intake from normal to below the threshold required for testosterone biosynthesis. At 12 weeks, Group 2's testosterone levels had dropped by an average of 73% from baseline. No other variable was changed. The researchers then restored zinc intake in Group 2. At 6 weeks post-restoration, testosterone levels had returned to within 90% of baseline. 73% testosterone drop from zinc restriction, reversed within 6 weeks by restoring zinc. Here is what makes black-eyed peas specifically effective for zinc absorption compared to other plant zinc sources. Most plant foods contain phytic acid, a compound that binds zinc and dramatically reduces its absorption. Lentils and chickpeas, for example, have significant phytic acid levels that reduce zinc bioavailability to 8 to 12%. Black-eyed peas have among the lowest phytic acid content of any legume because they contain a naturally higher concentration of the enzyme phytase, which degrades phytic acid during preparation, combined with their vitamin B6 and folate content, which optimize the cellular zinc uptake pathway, the net zinc. Bioavailability from black-eyed peas is significantly higher than their total zinc content suggests. Studies estimate actual bioavailability at 22 to 28%, comparable to lean red meat. Mechanism 3. Resenstar. Gut Mikrobiome meschen. IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, is the second most important anabolic signal for muscle protein synthesis after mTORC1 after 50. IGF-1 levels decline progressively. Unlike testosterone, where nutritional interventions can make a meaningful difference, IGF-1 was long considered purely hormonal and largely beyond dietary influence. A 2020 study in the European Journal of Nutrition changed that understanding. The researchers found that specific gut bacteria, Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium strains, when fed adequate resistant starch, produce short-chain fatty acids that signal the liver to increase IGF-1 secretion. The effect was significant and reproducible. Black-eyed peas contain among the highest concentrations of resistant starch of any commonly available food. Let me show you what addressing all three of these mechanisms costs through the supplement industry. Leucine powder, addressing only the mTORC1 mechanism, $20 to $30 per month. Zinc picolinate supplement, addressing only part of the testosterone mechanism, $12 to $20 per month. Prebiotic fiber supplement, addressing the resistant starch mechanism incompletely, $25 to $40 per month. Combined, $57 to $90 per month. For 3 partial solutions to 3 mechanisms that 1 bag of black-eyed peas addresses completely, for $4 a month. Why does the supplement industry not sell black-eyed pea protein powder? They tried. In the early 2000s, several companies developed cowpea protein concentrates. The problem: the market price for cowpea protein in bulk is so low that margins at retail, even with significant markup, were insufficient to support the advertising budgets required to compete in the sports nutrition space. A product that costs 3 cents to manufacture per serving cannot support the YouTube influencer fees, the magazine placements, and the sponsored athlete network that defines the protein powder market, so the product was abandoned. The research was not. The food remained in the beans aisle. And men spending $50 a month on protein powder continued missing 3 mechanisms that a 14-cent serving was addressing for Depression-era workers in 1932. The Great Depression began in 1929 and reached its lowest point in 1932 and 1933 in states like Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Black-eyed peas became the dominant protein source for millions of families, not by choice, but because they cost almost nothing, grew easily in poor soil, and could be dried and stored for months. What no one was studying in 1932, because academic nutrition barely existed as a field, was why the men eating black-eyed peas twice daily were maintaining physical capability in ways that their supervisors, Army recruiters, and physicians consistently noted in records of the era. These men were not supplementing, they were surviving, and accidentally getting 3 of the most important nutritional inputs for aging muscle biology every single day. In 1938, Bob Hoffman, the founder of York Barbell, the most influential physical culture organization in 20th century, America, published a bulletin on nutrition for strength athletes on limited budgets. The bulletin specifically recommended black-eyed peas as a primary protein source for men unable to afford meat daily. Hoffman noted that athletes in his program who incorporated black-eyed peas regularly showed, quote, comparable muscular development to those eating meat at every meal and superior endurance over training cycles of 12 weeks or more. This was not a scientific study. It was documented empirical observation across hundreds of athletes over years of coaching. The science has since confirmed exactly what Hoffman observed. Between 1940 and 1945, the United States military inducted approximately 10 million men, the largest physical assessment of the American male population ever conducted. The induction medical records, later analyzed by nutritional researchers in the 1960s, showed a consistent, geographic pattern. Men from the American South and Southwest, where black-eyed peas were dietary staples, showed higher average grip strength, better cardiovascular endurance scores, and lower rates of musculoskeletal deficiency than men from regions where the diet was dominated by processed grains. This is not a controlled study. It is a 10 million person natural experiment. And the dietary variable that most consistently correlated with superior physical performance in the data was legume consumption, specifically black-eyed peas in the southern cohort. By the 1950s, as American prosperity returned and protein powder began entering the market, black-eyed peas were quietly replaced as a training nutrition staple, not because they stopped working, because they stopped being necessary for survival. And because the supplement industry offered convenience, marketing, and the compelling message that their laboratory-engineered products were superior to peasant foods. The men who had built powerful physiques on Depression-era black-eyed peas were still in their 50s and 60s in the 1960s, and many were still physically formidable. But the cultural memory of why had already been buried under 50 years of supplement advertising. The food never changed. The knowledge was simply abandoned. The peer-reviewed research on black-eyed pea protein and muscle biology follows a timeline that mirrors exactly what we have seen with every other cheap whole food this channel has covered. Observation in the field, documented by coaches and record keepers from the 1930s through the 1950s. First scientific interest, 1960s and 1970s. Primarily agricultural nutritionists in developing countries studying legume protein for populations unable to afford meat. Modern muscle-specific research minus 2015 onward, as researchers studying plant-based protein in aging populations began identifying the specific mechanisms connecting cowpea protein to mTORC1, zinc bioavailability to testosterone, and resistant starch to IGF-1. Current status: over 30 peer-reviewed papers on black-eyed pea nutrition and health outcomes. Price: still 14 cents per serving. The reason black-eyed peas address all 3 mechanisms simultaneously and do so more effectively than the corresponding isolated supplements is the food matrix. Leucine does not operate in isolation in black-eyed peas. It is present alongside the zinc that supports testosterone production, alongside the resistant starch that signals IGF-1 through the gut-liver axis, and alongside vitamin B6 and folate that optimize the absorption of both leucine and zinc at the intestinal level. When you take isolated leucine powder, isolated zinc supplement, and isolated prebiotic fiber separately, even if you time them correctly, you miss the synergistic interactions that the whole food matrix provides simultaneously in a single 14-cent serving. No supplement laboratory has successfully replicated this matrix because you cannot patent a legume. Half a cup of cooked black-eyed peas, approximately 80 grams, with your first meal of the day. morning or early afternoon. This provides the leucine for sustained mTORC1 activation throughout the afternoon training window and the zinc for overnight testosterone support. Second serving, half a cup again, 30 minutes before your largest evening meal. This second zinc dose, timed before the largest meal to take advantage of gastric acid from food digestion improving mineral absorption, targets the testosterone mechanism specifically. Total daily, 1 cup of cooked black-eyed peas. From dried beans, approximately 14 cents. From canned, approximately 22 cents. Both work dried is preferred. Where to buy and what to look for. Dried black-eyed peas, available in the dried beans and legumes section of every major grocery store. A 1-pound bag costs between $1.50 and $2, providing approximately 11 to 12 half-cup cooked servings. That is 14 to 18 cents per serving. Canned black-eyed peas, available in the canned vegetables section. Approximately $80 to $1.20 per can, providing 3 to 4 servings. 20 to 30 cents per serving. Convenient but slightly more expensive and with somewhat lower resistant starch content due to the canning process. For the resistant starch mechanism, the IGF-1 pathway, dried and cooked, is significantly better than canned. The canning heat process partially degrades resistant starch. For the leucine and zinc mechanisms, both work equally well. Best approach, by dried in bulk. Cook a large batch once a week. Refrigerate in portions. Total weekly preparation time, under 15 minutes active. Preparation is simple and takes under 15 minutes of active time once a week. Dried black-eyed peas do not require overnight soaking, unlike most legumes. Rinse them, cover with water, bring to a boil, reduce heat, simmer for 45 to 60 minutes until tender. That is the entire process. For taste, black-eyed peas have a mild, slightly earthy, faintly nutty flavor. Not strong. Not unpleasant. Most people find them neutral to pleasant, especially when seasoned with salt, black pepper, and a small amount of olive oil. They can be eaten cold, warm, or at room temperature. They mix easily into any meal, with eggs at breakfast, beside any protein at dinner. They require no special preparation equipment and no blender. The simplicity is the point. Depression-era men did not have supplement shakers. They had a pot and 14 cents. 2 notes before the final cost comparison. First, if you have chronic kidney disease or are on a potassium-restricted diet prescribed by a doctor, black-eyed peas are high in potassium and phosphorus. Discuss any significant increase in legume intake with your physician before starting this protocol. Second, if you currently take blood thinners, the vitamin K content of black-eyed peas is moderate. At the amounts used in this protocol, 1 cup per day, this is unlikely to be clinically significant, but mention it to your doctor at your next visit. For everyone else, black-eyed peas have been a daily staple food for billions of people across thousands of years of human history. At 1 cup per day, no adverse effects have been documented in any clinical research for healthy adults. The complete cost comparison. To address the 3 mechanisms through the supplement industry, leucine powder, zinc supplement, prebiotic fiber, you would spend between $57 and $90 per month for 3 separate products, each addressing one mechanism partially. Black-eyed peas, dried, bulk, approximately $4 per month, addressing all 3 mechanisms completely, in the food matrix form that the clinical research actually validated. The supplement industry charges between 14 and 22 times more to address the same biology less effectively. And the food has been in the grocery store for 100 years. 14 cents per serving. Exactly what it cost in 1932 adjusted for inflation. The industry does not have an answer to this math. They simply hope you never do it. The protocol one final time. Clearly. Half a cup of cooked black-eyed peas with your first meal. Half a cup 30 minutes before your largest evening meal. 1 cup total per day. This is what Great Depression men were eating out of necessity in 1932. This is what Bob Hoffman documented in the York Barbell Bulletin in 1938. This is what Army induction records in 1940 to 1945 confirmed in 10 million men. And this is what the Journal of Nutrition in 2018 and the European Journal of Nutrition in 2020 explained with molecular precision. The food has been in your grocery store your entire life in the dried beans section. 1 pound for $2, 14 cents per serving. The knowledge was simply never delivered to you because there was no profit in doing so. Tell us in the comments, have you ever eaten black-eyed peas regularly? Not once on New Year's Day, but consistently, week after week, as a daily staple. And if you have, what did you notice about your energy, your strength, or your recovery? If you have been spending money on protein powder or supplements and not getting the results you expected, tell us that too. We read every single comment and respond with specific guidance for your situation. If this investigation into the 14-cent food that built the strongest men of the Great Depression and the 3 biological mechanisms that make it outperform $50 protein powder for men over 50 has changed how you look at the dried beans section of your grocery store. Please subscribe and share this video with one man in your life who is spending money on supplements and not getting the results he was promised. We read every comment. We respond with specific guidance, and we will keep digging up what they buried. We are dedicated to unearthing the history and biological truths the industry has tried to bury. Plant the seeds for a stronger future. The next vault of health knowledge opens very soon.